Megyn Kelly was on the Bill Maher show, and she came to talk. She came to talk her shit, okay, to Bill Maher, and she wasn't gonna let it slide. You know, Bill Maher has this thing where you go on his show, and shout out to Bill Maher. I admire him in a lot of ways. I have criticism for him and others, and hopefully it's helpful and healthy criticism. You can come on his show sometimes, and he'll sort of talk at you and claim that you're wrong and have the audience laugh at you, because that's the sort of built-in support you have as a late-night show host. Your audience is there to see you and to hear you and to laugh at you and support you. And he can sort of bulldoze his guests in more ways than one, with that being the built-in support that he has. Megyn Kelly did not allow it to happen. Now, she brought up children transitioning, which of course is a big issue, a massive issue, and people try to bring that issue down and say it's not so important. She was not going to let that slide. She actually left the audience stunned. Let's roll the clip.
Almost equally important, maybe as important, is what we're doing to our children with this trans insanity. I mean, this is almost my single issue. We are chopping off the healthy body parts of young children without, 100% we are doing that.
Well, we are definitely doing that.
Without any inquisition.
That's what it is. So
into
I don't know
what's
what
happened.
the oohing is about.
I don't either. Pay attention, because I'm about to give you a truth bomb. Kids who are suffering from bullying, or who have been sexually assaulted, or who are going through normal puberty and feel uncomfortable in their bodies, will say to their parents, I'm not sure, maybe I'm gender confused. They will send them into a psychiatrist or psychologist who are told by our organizations, the American Psychiatry Association, and all the others that run their licensing, you must affirm. Affirm is the only standard. And so the child gets told, you're right, you are secretly a boy, or vice versa. And the child gets put on puberty blockers, into cross-sex hormones, which sterilize a child and deprive the child of any chance of sexual pleasure for the rest of his or her life. We're talking about 9, 10, 11-year-olds who cannot give informed consent. Then they have body parts chopped off by a medical establishment and by parents who mean well but believe in these doctors, and they shouldn't. And when they inevitably get past the awkwardness of puberty or what have you, and they want to turn around and detransition, those who love bomb them on Reddit saying, come on in, the water's fine, abandon them. They are depressed. They have changed their bodies forever in a way that is irreversible. And we are all sitting back saying, it's a remote issue, as Kamala Harris said. It's not remote. It's the issue of our time, both with respect to children and women's rights.
Well, let's back up a little on that.
The scattered claps from the audience. You know, she said something that they didn't want to hear, that children are actually having their body parts lopped off, which is true. You can find several cases of girls undergoing double mastectomies, having their breasts removed, the puberty blockers being injected into kids, which stunts their development, and they claim pauses their puberty with no irreversible damage, although we have lots of research that points to the contrary, that it is harming them in many cases. You have the hormone replacement therapy that a lot of kids are undergoing, which can leave these kids completely infertile, sterilized, once this is all taken to its conclusion when it comes to medical transitioning. And there's so much harm done along the way in the psychological evaluations of these kids, the reinforcement of this blind affirmation that we take on when it comes to gender care, instead of asking other questions like, is this child dealing with something else that may lead to them experiencing this gender dysphoria? Is there an underlying issue that we can tackle that will make the gender dysphoria subside, so that we can go through this roller coaster that is early childhood development without completely ruining this child's mind and body? And we're finding that a lot of trans kids who are pushed to us, you know, through the media, or who families are personally dealing with, go through this turbulent time. Some of them make it out without transitioning and realize, oh my gosh, I'm not gender dysphoric anymore. The more unfortunate of the groups ends up going through gender transition, either all the way through, or, you know, to some point in the middle or at the beginning. And then on the other end of it decide, oh, I regret this. I'm not gender dysphoric. And the damage that they've received in the process of transitioning is oftentimes irreversible. You're hearing from kids now, like Chloe Cole, who's now an adult, but went through gender transition, has virtually no sensation in her private areas, no sexual gratification, a double mastectomy, that what are you going to do about that? And now Chloe Cole is trying to sort of rediscover femininity, and is doing so in a really strong and powerful way, and choosing to broadcast that to the world so they can see what's happening. And that's the story of detransitioners that we're hearing. Imagine all of those right now who are going through this that we are not hearing from. They are struggling in silence. They are trying to find community, and they're hopping online and finding these blind affirmation forums where people tell them that they're not actually trans, or they're dishonoring the trans community, or they shouldn't be spoken about when they're going through a real struggle. And when Megyn Kelly says this is going to be the issue of our time, I truly believe that decades from now, if we actually engage with unbiased research and look into these problems to the fullest extent, we are going to realize that we're actually committing medical crimes against children. And other countries have managed to make that realization. Sweden, Germany, France, the UK is currently in the throes of discovering that right now, shutting down gender clinics, being sued. These doctors are being sued for what they're putting these children through. And that's what's going to happen here. And it's children transitioning and regretting it. It's children being sterilized and regretting it. It is kids being taken away from family members because the family does not support their transition, being pushed through the medical system, and then what? Regretting it. It's some trans people not even being able to vocalize their regret because they have killed themselves along the way in this journey, a journey that they were wholly unready for, wholly uneducated for, because doctors are knowingly not giving them the full scope of information. I urge you guys to look into the Cass report, the WPATH files. There are now reports of doctors willingly holding back research that they've done within their own clinics because they've found out through the data that what they're doing is harmful. And because they are so subservient to their agenda and ideology, they are not allowing that research to be published. These people need to be jailed, to be honest. Not all of them. Some people are virtually unaware of what's going on, and they're just dedicated to this idea that they're doing something right for people and that they are allowing children to be themselves. And there's a special category for those. But others are knowingly misleading children down the path of literal sterilization. No sexual feeling or pleasure for the rest of their lives. An inability to accept themselves and accept their bodies, and getting a mutilated one on the other end of it. So I'm so glad that Megyn Kelly was able to say that on Bill Maher. And this is the moment that Bill Maher goes, yes, it is happening. And he actually corrects his audience for giving her that reaction. But mind you, Dennis Prager was on Bill Maher in 2019, I believe, and you can go and look up this clip. And Dennis tells Bill Maher that the left right now is pushing this propagandized narrative that men are able to menstruate. Bill Maher laughs in Dennis's face. He said he's never heard that. The entire panel laughs at Dennis. They call him crazy. The entire audience laughs at Dennis, calling him crazy. The left isn't saying that. And look where Bill Maher is now. So maybe we need to own up to the fact that for a long time, we pushed a narrative that actually led us to the point we're at now, where you have to defend to your own audience that something like this is happening. And maybe it's your own actions that led you there. And of course, we're all wrong at some point. I used to be a super radical leftist. I believed all these things. But maybe a little bit of accountability on the role that you played in allowing these ideas to take root. Just maybe. Okay. There is another clip of Megyn Kelly. We're going to keep going. We've got 2 more to go. Now, she talks about election denial because, of course, we have an election coming up, and denial seems to be a hot button topic here. This is what she has to say.
Well, don't think there won't be denialism if Kamala Harris loses, too.
It won't be the same.
Okay, but there's going to be. I mean, they're already laying the foundation for lawfare. We're going to be stuck in this election one way or the other, no matter who wins, for weeks.
Well, there's no evidence of that. Democrats have never done that. They've conceded.
We already had this fight on my show. Hillary Clinton is the original election denier. Stacey Abrams. Yes, she is.
It's different. Come on, man. Right. It's different between grumbling. Yes, they grumble and they shouldn't, and maybe it goes over the. It's different between grumbling about something and actually trying to overturn it, like he did. I mean, you know this. Why do we have to go through this?
That's fine. You're allowed to file legal challenges in response to an election, which is what Trump did, and he lost, and he did wind up leaving office. I'm not going to defend his behavior on January 6th. I never have, and I'm not going to start tonight. But if you don't think there's going to be denialism on the Dem side, you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening on that side for these years.
Okay. And I love that she's just like, I'm not going to let this go. Actually, no, what you just said is an absolute lie. And just in case, because she can't roll the clip. She can't say roll the clip on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher has to say roll the clip. This is something that exists on X. You can go and look it up. It's on Libs of TikTok. This is actually a 24-minute clip. Of course, we're not going to go through 24 minutes of this. This is 24 minutes of Democrats denying the election. In case you needed proof with your own eyes.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Russia interfered with our election, attacked our democracy for the sole purpose of artificially placing someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They were successful.
Trump, do I need to go on? Do I need to go on? Who are the original election deniers? And it's so funny that these are like people working within the DNC that are denying the election, because the DNC, I guess the reason they would know, I guess, if election is rigged, because they're so willing to do it at any opportunity they get. We saw it with Hillary. Bernie was supposed to be the guy. Bernie was supposed to be the guy. What did the DNC do? They took him out and they pushed forward Hillary. Who was supposed to be the Democrats' guy this time? It certainly wasn't supposed to be Kamala Harris. But what did the Democrats do? They allowed Joe Biden and this entire administration to run with the lie that he was going to go on to be reelected and that he was going to run the race yet again, knowing damn well that man doesn't know his toes from his ass at the moment, and he was not going to run for re-election because they knew they just wanted to hand it over to Kamala Harris. And they couldn't do that if they had to run it through a primary. So here they are, like the people who are always so capable of moving things around when it comes to election time, denying that Trump actually won that election. And for Bill Maher to say they're not doing it, oh, they're just complaining a little bit, and complaining a little bit is very different from what Trump did. Please. Can we get a little bit of reality here? And I don't know why he can't admit that. Has he not seen the clips? I mean, he's somebody who's been covering politics for I don't know how long. He should know that this is happening. We have one more clip with Megyn Kelly and Bill Maher where she does it yet again.
These are the dictator countries. There's a very World War II feeling here when the dictator countries are getting together. I mean, in World War II, what did Hitler and the Japanese have in common? Nothing, except they saw the world one way. Fascism. They all have to do it in their different way. Iran is a fascist country in their own way. So is China. So is Russia. Saudi Arabia, you could say also. Somehow, the world seems to be dividing between the good guy countries, the democratic countries, and these autocracies. And if your guy gets in, we're going to be on the wrong side of this one.
Okay. If my guy gets in, I think we'll go back to the time that we had when he was president, which is the only time we didn't start a war and get involved in a war. Did Putin?
That's not true.
Did Putin?
Jimmy Carter never fired a shot.
Putin did not invade Ukraine until Biden took over. We had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, which projected weakness through the world. People understood that we were enfeebled, and that is what was provocative. Weakness is provocative.
I feel like
Trump destabilized these people. They didn't know what to expect of him. Next thing you know, he's bombing Soleimani. Trump did strategic strikes that had people on their heels. They didn't know what he might do to them. And we did not have Putin invade
It's what he might
Ukraine.
do to us that I'm a little more worried. I feel like
We've had 4 years of Trump. We've had 4 years of Trump.
Yeah.
Trump did not go after his political enemies with the Department of Justice.
Right.
That was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Well, we had Hitler in the 30s and things were okay, and then we had Hitler in the 40s and they got way worse. Just because we had him.
He hid his Hitlerism the first 4 years, and is going to come out in full force.
He tried to do things like that. He tried to do dictatorial fascist things, and he was stopped.
Joe Biden has flouted the law when it comes to these student loan giveaway programs. He's flouted the law. Supreme Court opinions that told him he didn't have the right to do it, and he openly said, I will get around the Supreme Court. He did it with respect to rent abatement programs, the same exact thing. And then he and Kamala Harris unleashed this Department of Justice against their political enemy, Donald Trump, their #1 chief rival for the presidency.
Okay. Well,
is it funny? Because they did it.
We'll see.
You want to talk fascism? That's fascist.
I think history is not going to be kind to your point of view, but I appreciate you coming on and saying it. Thank you, Megyn. All right, Megyn Kelly.
Ugh, there's something so like crazy about it. You know, it's like I'm going to make a funny comparison, but it's kind of like watching The Hunger Games. Shout out to Suzanne Collins for writing just a piece of literature that is going to withstand the test of time always, because it is literally the world that we're living in. He is Caesar Flickerman, like touting out these people to like literally tell you this is what's going on, this is what you should be worried about, and laughing in their face as the audience does the same. And it's just so ridiculous to listen to as she's listing off valid examples of actual authoritarian actions from this current administration. And we can add more onto that. Kamala Harris, when she was debating as a Democratic presidential nominee, said that she was going to come after people's guns. Joe Biden at the time called her out and said, what you're asking for is actually unconstitutional. And she looked at him and said, Joe, why can't you just say, yes, we can? Meaning she's going to, surpass the Constitution and do what it is that she wants to do. She is the candidate who is going after hate speech and misinformation, whatever that means, because we all know that hate speech and misinformation just means attacking our political opponents and people with dissident opinions. Does that sound authoritarian to you? She's the one who's offered $20K forgivable loans to black men. She's going to apparently give out 1 million of these loans, forgivable loans. Okay, what is a forgivable loan? It means I'm giving you $20,000 as essentially a bribe. That's what it is. There's no such thing as a forgivable loan. By virtue of being a loan, it means it must be paid back. And the fact that she's exclusively giving that to black men, does that not sound like the most unconstitutional thing you've ever heard? Yet Donald Trump is the leader that we should all be worried about, the one that we've already lived through 4 years with, and we made it out to the other end without him doing virtually anything. How can we make this claim? It's just nuts to me. Not to mention, she mentions the lawfare against Donald Trump and the literal weaponization of our criminal justice system against political opponents. You can look at the people at January 6th who are still in jail or currently being jailed for things that they've done. That actor from Bob's Burgers who was there at January 6th, I think he just got over a year a sentence in federal prison for his involvement in January 6th. Give me a break. Who is the person who's actually going to go after political dissidents? And of course, this opinion has taken root because of the media. And Bill Maher is a part of that media. And maybe he's so entrenched in the system that he actually believes what he's being force-fed through, I don't know, the universal memos that they're sending out every week for these talking heads and pundits to just throw out on air. He truly believes that Donald Trump is a fascist. Something here does not make sense. And you see these people rubbing elbows with Donald Trump when he goes to events. We watched at the Al Smith dinner as Chuck Schumer was sitting right next to him and they're, tapping each other and making jokes about one another. These people don't actually believe the things that they're saying. The camera comes on and it becomes theater. Now, in the case of Bill Maher, I don't know. I don't know what he truly thinks. But he says it at the end here, I don't think history is going to look kindly on your opinion. I don't think you're going to be on the right side of this. Let's give it time, baby. Because I'm quite sure that history is going to look kindly on everything that Megyn Kelly just said. And we're going to have another Dennis Prager moment from 2019 where he tried to tell you something, you laughed in his face, you weaponized the audience against him, and you've done it again in Megyn Kelly. And now we're just going to set the timer and wait for everything she says to be true. Now, it's either going to be true in that Trump becomes president and you live through another 4 years as Bill Maher and you kiki it up and laugh on your talk show and you have nothing to go off of because all of the baseless accusations you've made were exactly that, or you get 4 years under Kamala where you experience the very things that Megyn Kelly is warning you about and you either own up to it, take a little bit of accountability, which he's not necessarily used to, and speak about it, or you have to cover your eyes like the rest of the media does and focus on other stories, although you won't have Donald Trump to beat like a piñata because he won't be around anymore. What are you going to do then, Bill? So I guess we'll wait and see who history looks kindly on, and we'll hope it's not too late for you to turn course and speak about where you were wrong. So just mark this on your calendars, guys. Mark this video, and we'll put another quarter in the Megyn Kelly is right jar. This is just nuts. And thanks to Megyn Kelly for holding her own, because there's an environment on these talk shows where you go on and you sort of feel like, oh, this overwhelming pressure, the whole audience is on this guy's side. He's the one who's steering the interview in a certain direction. And you might feel the need to not hold your ground or to just let the interview flow and let them sort of roll over you and talk over what it is that you're saying and invalidate your opinion without you getting a moment to say, wait, hold on a second. What you just said is incorrect. She did not allow that. And every moment that he tried to speak over her, she came back in and said, no. This is what I think. Here's why. She substantiated it. And she said, you know what? I'm going to leave you with that. And we'll see what happens. And that's the confidence of just knowing that you're telling the truth and knowing that you have the truth behind you in everything that you're referencing and everything that you're predicting. And again, we shall just wait and see. But shout out to Megyn.